Shreveport City Council will be coming to order shortly. I ask you to please join us. Call to order. The chair will give the invocation. Councilman Corbin will give us the Pledge of Allegiance. Let us pray. Almighty God, we thank you this day, God, for the rain. We thank you for this city. We pray, God, that we shall be a shining light. For we know that where there is light, there is no darkness. And God, I know the devil's busy about working, trying to cause confusion. But we pray for peace and, Lord, for joy. Now bless this meeting and give us wisdom and knowledge. And, oh God, forgive us of our sins where we have failed thee. In Christ's name I do pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilman Everson.
Here.
Councilman Bowman.
Here.
Councilman Fleury.
Here.
Councilman Bradford.
Present.
Councilwoman Lynch. And Councilman Corbin.
Present.
Tomorrow I shall be searching for a approval of minutes for the administrative conference and city council meeting and a special meeting of May 8th, May 9th.
And I believe you shall find it.
That brings us to awards, recognitions, and of distinguished guests. Any council member at this time would like to be recognized? Seeing none, Mayor Tyler, at this time, you're recognized.
I have today present Mr. Kelly Wells from the Shreveport Boulder Sports Commission. And I believe I saw his immediate boss, Ms. Stacy Brown. And of course he has somebody with him, but I just want to recognize him as being here today.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kelly and Stacy. Any others, Mayor?
No, thank you.
Mr. Green, I believe you're first on the reports. Would you please come forward? Does any member at this time have questions or concerns relative to the property standards? Mr. Green, I see none. Thank you for your time. The revenue collections plan will be here tomorrow. Mr. Bradford? Crawford, excuse me.
Yeah, that'll be given at the next council meeting, the first council meeting of every meeting, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. And Mr. Sweeney, we will have you a master plan report at the next meeting, correct? Or tomorrow, okay? Tomorrow we will be required to hold several public hearings in regards to the legislation to be adopted. Mr. Crawford, would you please continue?
We have public hearings tomorrow, Mr. Chairman. Number one is ordinance number 41 of 2017. This is an ordinance levying a tax of 8 and 55/100ths mils per dollar on all property subject to ad valorem taxation within the bounds of the Downtown Development District of the City of Shreveport, Louisiana, as defined by LARS 332740.38 for the year 2017, and the amounts and purposes described herein. Public hearing number 2 is ordinance number 42 of 2017, levying various taxes totaling 17 and 29/100ths mils per dollar on all property subject to ad valorem taxation within the City of Shreveport, Louisiana for the year 2017, and the amounts and the purposes described herein. Public hearing number 3, ordinance number 43 of 2017, providing for an increase in the millage rates whereby the City of Shreveport rolls forward the millage rates not exceeding the maximum authorized rate and levying various taxes totaling 17 and 65/100ths mils per dollar on all property subject to ad valorem taxation within the City of Shreveport, Louisiana for the year 2017, and the amounts and for the purposes described herein. Public hearing number 4 is ordinance number 45 of 2017, providing for an increase in the millage rates whereby the Shreveport Downtown Development Authority shall roll forward to millage rates not exceeding the maximum authorized rate and levying various taxes totaling 8 and 64/100ths mils per dollar on all property subject to ad valorem taxation in the bounds of the Downtown Development District of the City of Shreveport, Louisiana, as defined by LARS 332740.38 for the year 2017. Number 5, public hearing is ordinance number 51 of 2017. This is a series ordinance pursuant to the 2016 General Revenue Bond Ordinance authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $100 million of water and sewer revenue bonds, Series 2017A, and 2, water and sewer revenue bonds, Junior Lien Series 2017B of the City of Shreveport, State of Louisiana, as provided in a notice of intent given by resolution number 38 of 2017, adopted on March 14, 2017, establishing certain details of such bonds as required by the 2016 General Revenue Bond Ordinance, approving and confirming the sale of such bonds to a group of underwriters led by Seabird, Conseco, Shank and Company, LLC, pledging the net revenues of the city's combined water and sewer systems to secure such bonds, prescribing the forms and certain terms and conditions of said bonds. And then the last public hearing, Mr. Chairman, is number 6, ordinance number 53 of 2017, a series ordinance pursuant to the General Bond Ordinance authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $20 million in principal amounts of taxable water and sewer revenue bonds, Junior Lien Series 2017D of the City of Shreveport, State of Louisiana, as provided in a notice of intent given by resolution number 38 of 2017, adopted on March 14, 2017, establishing certain details of such bonds as required by the General Bond Ordinances, approving and confirming the sale of such bonds to the Clean Water State Revolving Fund, pledging the net revenues of the city's combined water and sewer systems to secure such bonds, prescribing the form and certain terms and conditions of said bonds.
Outstanding, Mr. Crawford. Let me share with those in the audience, if you would like to speak on those items that are on the agenda, that you'll need to go to the back and prepare, fill out a form and bring to the clerk over here before the public hearing section. Comments done. Okay, Mr. Crawford, will there be any legislation to be added tomorrow?
Not that we're aware of, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, and is anyone here that is going to want to speak on any of the items? We'll give you time to fill it out if you haven't already. I see none so far up here. And we'll move on then.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Point of order. If there are anyone who desire to speak and have not filled out a form, would they make themselves? Huh? Because I asked.
The public hearing will be tomorrow.
No, we're talking about public comments on items on the agenda.
Who said that?
On items on the agenda.
Yeah, anybody who wants to speak, fill out a form.
Is Miss Landry here from the sign? Is she here? Okay. Yeah, that should have come.
Okay, move on. Nobody's filled that in.
Okay.
Okay. We have no appointments to be considered, so let's
No, Mr.
continue
Chair.
the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, we're on the consent agenda legislation to adopt ordinances and resolution. Ordinance 91 accepts dedication of Dumaine Drive right-of-way in St. Charles Place subdivision, unit number 15. Resolution 92 rejects the bids received for IFB 17-0592, lake patrol boats, motors, and trailers. Resolution number 93 suspends certain provisions of Chapter 10 and any applicable provision of the Unified Development Code of the Shreveport Code of Ordinances relative to the sale, dispensing, and consumption of alcoholic beverages for the Highland Jazz and Blues Festival located at 600 Columbia Street. And Resolution 94 expresses support for the City of Shreveport, Louisiana response to the request for proposal issued by the New Orleans Pelicans for the purposes of becoming the flagship community for the New Orleans Pelican G League team beginning in the 2018-2019 season.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Councilman Radford.
Mr. Chairman, number 94, I see it's sponsored by Councilman Epperson. I spoke with Councilman Epperson. Is there any? I expressed some of my reservations with Councilman Epperson. But what would be, in the opinion of administration and others, the impact, whether it's financial or otherwise, of soliciting for this proposed team coming to Shreveport?
Do you want me to respond? Or
Well, I just want a conversation for a second.
Oh, sure, yeah, and I'll just briefly start and then hand it over to them for their answer. Certainly, what we're doing in this resolution It's just a support letter for wanting them to consider Shreveport, and quite frankly, I'd like, you know, any city that, any business opportunity that is looking to expand to consider Shreveport. So I think it's a very positive thing to ask. Now, certainly the details of a final proposal will bear some further discussion, but what we're considering right now is, you know, just to have them consider Shreveport as their location for their new G League team. And the idea that it would be located along Cross Bayou certainly helps to expand economic development opportunity in an area that we have been talking about for a number of years. It's an area where we've had some past resources aligned, things such as the EPA grants for making some of the formerly contaminated land over there available for development. Things such as, I believe it was a bond from 96 or 7 that was for Cross Bayou land acquisition. You know, I mean, this has been an area that has been underdeveloped and has great potential in the city for quite some time. And I think that this does help to move that agenda along. Certainly also helps to provide family-friendly entertainment options, something we hear a lot of requests for, and provides a good use in downtown for a time where, during evenings, where, downtown is certainly has a lot of activity during the day, and then along the riverfront has a lot of activity in the evenings. But we would like to see, some more consistent use of the area throughout the day, because it is built to facilitate, tourism and visitors, and so. You would hope that would continue on with job creation and really a growth of assets and quality of life to help bring visitors to our region. So, and not just visitors for basketball. Certainly we'd hope to get the fans of the Pelicans there from the region as well as locally, but also to have many of the competitions right now that pass us by and go straight to Lafayette. There are a lot of things that we do have to say no to right now, and things such as, wrestling competitions, cheerleading competitions, things that are not the traditional, football or baseball or soccer kind of tournaments, but those things that have to take place in a venue that we don't necessarily have available to us. Those are reasons I think it's worth certainly supporting this. Now, obviously, there's a lot more discussion that needs to be had before we commit to anything financially, and we need a lot more details for that. But I think for those reasons that I mentioned before, it's certainly worth inviting the Pelicans to consider us as their new home.
Okay. And if I may,
Yes,
Mr.
Mayor.
Chairman, Ms. Bradford, just to add to what Councilman Efferson has alluded to, certainly I've asked Mr. Wells if he would come today to talk a little bit about his experience with trying to attract a lot of competition to this area, particularly with things that we don't have coming right now. A lot of the soccer, a lot of the cheerleading competitions, a lot of the tennis, gymnastics, all of those competitions that happen statewide and regionally. We're going to be able to attract those. Shreveport sits in a very, I think, rare location, unique location, with all the interstates running through us. And right now, we don't have a lot of those competitions coming because we don't have a facility to actually get those kinds of competitions here in our city. Economically, I think it's going to be a win-win for us. The developmental G League for the Pelicans will simply, I think, be icing on the cake. And if we're able to actually win this RFP, we don't want to talk too much about what's in it, because we do want to be competitive. We've got 5 other cities who are really trying to get it, because I think they too realize how important and the economic impact that it can have in our city. And I just want to say that for those people who have not noticed, infrastructure is being addressed across this city. And so in order for us to continue those efforts, we're going to have additional resources. This is one way to get it. We are trying to develop the Cross Bayou Corridor, and that is a natural resource that's underused, not used at all. And I think we're missing a great opportunity. But with this particular initiative, project, I think that's going to just be the catalyst to what can happen along the Cross Bayou Corridor. We already have companies that are interested in coming in and investing to finish developing the inner city as well as along the Cross Bayou Corridor. We've already been at the table with some of those. If this should happen, I think it would be the catalyst to get a lot of things done in Shreveport. If our city is to ever grow and progress and move, we're going to have to do some of these kinds of things, think outside the box to be able to get where we need to go. We don't have the revenue coming in that some cities have because we don't charge for a lot of services that we give away. But we need to actually come up with other ways to impact economically our community so that we can move ahead and address some of those other critical needs. And I'm at this time, if it's okay, I'd like to ask Mr. Wells or Ms. Brown, either one of them, to come to the podium just to talk a little bit about this endeavor without talking in details about the RFP.
And I want to accept them, Mayor, but I
Yes.
also want to reserve the right to ask a couple of questions.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yes.
Thank you, Mayor Tyler. Thank you, City Council. Being in the Sports Commission for about 5 years, it's amazing going out and seeing the success that we have. And, to this day, our best asset is still our location regionally. We're right in the heart of sports within the southern United States, and kind of went through, the Municipal Auditorium was built back in the 20s, and at the time it was state-of-the-art venue for the 20s. They built the Hirsch Coliseum to expand on what was needed. Of course, Cargill came along. The Shreveport Convention Center in Hilton was built right around the time I left Chattanooga, Tennessee, and came here back in 2000, 2001, again, to fill a need. And I was thinking to myself where we would be today if we didn't have the Shreveport Convention Center in Hilton. Again, it allows us to go after big conventions, et cetera. I was just at our National Association of Sports Commissions meetings in Sacramento a couple weeks ago. And I was there with Lafayette, which I believe the mayor or Brian mentioned, or Jeff mentioned, now has a multi-sports complex. Lake Charles not only has a multi-sports complex, but they also have baseball and swimming, et cetera. And that's really, a lot of time was spent on communities building these venues. So really with the multi-sports complex, it's a multi-use type deal. I've heard some comments, what about the CenturyLink Center? Well, it's a venue that was really created for concerts. It seats 17,000, so it's not really efficient for this type of event. The Hirsch Coliseum, would be all right, but it doesn't really have enough exhibit space. So Primetime Sports just had a amateur youth basketball event over the weekend. The old days, which are, the past, Primetime and AAU and Big Shots and all these folks were fine with using 4, 5, 8 different gymnasiums around the city. Well, now that you can do that all in one, we're getting narrowed down as far as what we can do. Logistically, from a rights holder side point, view, if I can do it all under one roof, it makes a lot more sense. And again, the participants like that, so they've been forced to do that in the past here in our market, but less and less events are coming here because you've got Lafayette, and of course Dallas has Fieldhouse USA. I don't know if Scott's here, but it's an incredible concept. Again, it's in Frisco, Texas, but they've had an impact of $91 million, over the last, since I believe 2009. So again, they've got the population, but what we've got is the regional, location. So I think it's something to at least look at. As far as the D League, you look at the NFL and in the hierarchy of professional sports, basketball and the NBA come in second. And I heard Dennis Lausch a few months ago talk about the aggressiveness of the NBA and really growing the sport internationally, but also being successful in bringing the NBA to non-NBA communities. That's what we were able to do last fall with the Pelicans and the Dallas Mavericks. That's what we did in 2014. In fact, I got confirmation the first time we had that game was the highest preseason attendance that the Pelicans have ever had. You know, in the NFL and NBA market, which most of these NBA markets are, it's not a real thrill to go to a preseason game because you get to see a lot of regular season game. So I think from that end, it's really important if you build a venue like this to have a regular tenant. We looked at an economic impact of the D League. It would be between $600,000 and $1 million a year, but it would be a great quality of life. Again, by 2018-19, every D League team or every NBA team is required to have a D League. So of course it'll become the G League. So Gatorade just came on board with a multi-million-dollar sponsorship. ESPN's on board. So right now, 30% of NBA players get some time in the D League. So I just talked to some folks over the weekend at the Fit for Life, and they said, well, we want the Pelicans here. And I said, well, unless we, it's kind of like the Southwest Airlines deal, unless we grow our population considerably, we probably won't get an NBA or an NFL team. I feel like if we go this route, we could possibly do an NBA preseason game every year. You know, the Hirsch Coliseum was brought up as well, and that's one of the first places that we showed them. It's a great venue. You know, I think if hockey and basketball weren't going on simultaneously, that would be a perfect venue to look at. And so, you know, I know that Benson also, who owns the Pelicans, also owns the Saints. So I think there's lots of opportunities here. And so I just applaud the city for exploring this and just looking at the different opportunities, you know, from the sports side. You know, I'm glad that I get to do sports all the time. I know to a lot it's a quality of life, but I see it every day that it's an economic impact. And a lot of times the quality of life. So I'll close with, we just submitted our bids to the LHSA, and we'll be going down to Baton Rouge on May the 31st to bid on the state wrestling again, which we have to do at the CenturyLink because it fits their specs. But we're also branching out and going after volleyball, which is a growing sport here locally, and also powerlifting, which is the fastest growing LHSA sport. Both of those, we're making the convention center work for the bid that they need. But a facility like this would be perfect to host without a whole lot of changes to that event. So it's really just some thoughts, you know, from my end. And I brought, is it okay to, Meehan, sure. If you know Meehan, if you've ever had chicken fingers, they do them best over at Raising Cane's. But Meehan, I actually got to know her. She was the sponsorship person for the Shreveport Bossier Mavericks back when they were in business, and I wanted her to just kind of come out. She's a big basketball fan, but she also, from the sponsorship side, had some valid points on. Some have compared the Mavericks with the D League, so I thought she could shed some light on that.
I'm short here, so I have to bring it all the way down. I did want to talk with you all. Kelly asked me to come speak with you. I was the director of marketing for the Shreveport Bossier Mavericks. Spoke to you guys a lot throughout our time here. But I did want to express to you all that an NBA D League and an ABA team is night and day. So I don't want you all to compare the D League to what the Mavericks were. It's not the same. If you get an NBA D League team in Shreveport, the economic impact that you would have in this city would skyrocket. Of course, like Councilman Everson mentioned, the family entertainment that you would have here, that's one thing that we tried to provide in the Shreveport community, but a big setback for us was we were not tied to a professional organization. People didn't take the Mavericks seriously, but if you bring an NBA D League team to this area and it's tied to an organization like the Pelicans, you have that NBA representation and those corporate sponsorships, you'll see a complete difference in the support that this organization would get. So again, my biggest thing to you all is please do not compare an NBA D League team to an ABA organization. It's not the same. The level of professionalism, the sponsorships, the marketing materials, it would be completely different. You know, the Mavericks did do our best while we were here. I relocated to Kentucky with the team for a year to start up the team, get it started there. But of course, people want to see it tied to something. What are we getting out of this? Are we going to see these players on TV one day playing in an NBA game? And with the D League, you'll have certain sponsorships like Gatorade coming into the community. You'll have ESPN in Shreveport on a frequent, consistent basis. And that's a really good deal for Shreveport to be on ESPN consistently. So that was my major thing with speaking to you all today, is just please think about it from a consumer. With your family, with your kids, would you enjoy bringing your kids to a Pelicans game, maybe seeing one of those guys someday playing on the Pelicans roster? Because it does happen frequently where those guys get moved up. So that was my main point for you all today. Just think about it from a different aspect. Don't compare it to the Mavericks, because it's not the same.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I just wanted to talk a little bit about tourism and sports tourism in Shreveport and the greater Metroplex area. As you may or may not be aware, we have about 11,000 hotel rooms in our market today. So on any given night, about 6,000 of those are with visitors to our area, whether that's for business, they're traveling through, or they're coming here to visit friends and family, coming here for conventions, meetings, sporting events, all different types of reasons. A number of those hotel rooms in our market are what we call limited service properties. So they don't offer room service, they don't have a regular restaurant, they usually have no meeting space or very limited meeting space. So their opportunities for conventions and meetings is very limited, unless we have something like an Alpha Kappa Alpha that's looking for many, many hotel rooms. So they're looking for revenue in other sources. Sporting groups are a great resource for these types of hotels. And so that's an area that we as a community recognized about 5 years ago and said, hey, we really need to step up this market. Let's get more into the sports market. So as we've been growing that, as Mr. Wells mentioned, we have to look for what are the future needs. How do we continue to grow into the future? So there had already been discussions of a multi-sport facility, multi-purpose facility that has multiple courts, and how do we go about that? How would it fit in our community? Then when an opportunity came up with a full-time tenant for that multi-purpose facility, it was like, wow, now this can really make this a very profitable thing for our community and drive significant economic impact. So that's why we're here today, to really encourage you to look at this opportunity to potentially host the NBA D-League or G-League, Gatorade, since they're a major sponsor, and consider a multi-purpose facility, a multi-sport facility that would host not only this league, but would then give us the opportunity to go after many more sporting events. As the mayor was talking about the location there along Cross Bayou, located close to the convention center, that would build even more synergy. There are events that we can go after that would include usage of the convention center as well as the new facility. So just want to keep your minds open, thinking of the possibilities. I know times are hard, and we're doing a lot of road construction, a lot of other things, but you have to think like a developer as well. Can you stop and not do development just because you need to fix some things in your own backyard at the moment? You have to continually look at what are those opportunities to drive revenue for your community and for your investment in the future. And to be able to possibly have a full-time tenant for a new building you may be building is definitely a great way to start that. So just wanted to bring that up to you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions, or Kelly or me in as well.
All right, thank you. Mr. Chairman, I have several questions, and let me be clear. I do have reservations. Not that we should not have a nice facility that will be multi-purposely used. My reservations is that, and I know this is a stage where we're just making proposals, support to be one of 6 cities that will vie for this opportunity. But I have to say that, in my opinion, at Shreveport, it's not at the point, or have not been at the point, to where we have been very supportive of athletics and sports. Let me give an example. Over the what we have had in Shreveport that has defunct or failed is 2 baseball teams, 4 basketball teams, 1 hockey team, 1 soccer team, and 6 football teams. And the reason that they have not succeeded consistently is that we have not had the support in regards to the disposable dollar that we would consistently use to be entertained. In addition to that, it appears that one of the part of the equation that I think may be a part of this opportunity is corporate sponsors as well as season ticket holders. We have not been able to be supportive in any sports, and we've had some. We've had Canadian football, we've had arena football, we've had American football. So we've had the Steamers, and everybody else. But regardless of what efforts we put into trying to be a city that will support a viable sporting program, we just haven't been able to succeed. So and I know we're talking about just primary stuff, but I have to be conscious that what has changed to make this one more appealing and successful. And I know competition. Okay, the owner of the Pelicans have said, let me buy 6 competition of cities, and then at the end of the day, everybody submit their proposal, and then I'm gonna pick out the city. He has to know these statistics and the challenges that Shreveport have had in maintaining sporting teams. So he may know something that we don't know, or he's just using us as a competition. But nevertheless, I cannot express my deep concern for us going into this venue. Again, it's not about an arena. Okay, I have no problems with that. I mean, I have some problems, but not my major problems. But I'm just saying that we are a city that has so many priorities, so many things that need to be going on here. Our economic capital when it comes to jobs and livable wage jobs, we're still struggling with that. We're still struggling with all these things. So I'm just saying, the fan base, will it actually be there? And I'm going to further discuss this, but I'm just saying I had to express my concerns. What would be, I don't even know, what would be the average ticket price for a D-League game?
I don't know about that, but I would like to speak to your discussion of your concerns, okay, Councilman Bradford. And I certainly understand those concerns.
Sure.
I know when I first moved to town, that was back when we had the AAA affiliate baseball with the Shreveport Captains here. I was a regular fan, as well as a number of other people, and it had great, strong attendance. And part of that was because you knew you were seeing players that in a week or two you might see on television. So it was that level of professionalism, the level of play, that was a little bit different and drove people a little bit differently, and the visitors and the people coming to watch them play. And I think that's a little bit of what Mian was speaking to as well, and that the Mavericks, they had some of their very dedicated people coming to watch them week after week. They were a tremendous team. They played extremely well. But let's face it, how many people really know what the ABA is, and how many people follow that? And how many of those players do you see on television in a couple of weeks? It's a very different comparison, and we're not comparing apples to apples. So I think part of it is making sure that when we're looking at the following of teams, is are we comparing apples to apples with those different types of sporting teams to the NBA D-League team?
Well, my debate wasn't about apples to apples comparison. My debate was about the reality of where we are in being a viable city that could support this. For instance, and I didn't want to expand too much, but I mean we cannot attract college teams here, basically. I mean, Grambling just bailed out of coming here this year. We can't seem to reached a max as it relates to getting teams and attendance at the Independence Bowl at a comfortable level that could be very impressive to those outside of our community. We just seem to be limited on our interest in sports. I mean, again, one event. I mean, the Pelicans coming up here playing one preseason game is one thing, playing 50 games in a season and I'm going to say I'm sure the game's going to be at least $25, which is another thing. And I think that to sell that is going to be very difficult to maintain over any length of time. But that's to be seen. But I'm just saying I'm expressing my reservation.
Yeah, you asked the question on the NBA pricing, and even if you go to a Pelicans game in New Orleans, and we kind of learned this through the ticketing, NBA knows that they've got a broad diversity of fans, and so you can go to an NBA game unless it's Cleveland or Golden State, which you can't get a ticket for less than $300 or $400. But for an average game, you can get up in the cheap seats for $5 to $7. From as far as I know, the Pelicans have not set their D-League pricing yet, but looking at some other D-League markets, I mean, most of these markets they're in right now are non-NBA markets, so they know kind of where they set from that end, but they average anywhere from $12 up to $35 or $40, but they do a really good job of really finding the product for each demographic that attends and each of the scale. You mentioned the Independence Stadium, and that's something that, again, we're charged with working on. And a lot of these cities like Grambling understand the economics of football. And with the stadium, it was built as a great venue, but there's limited use, for the stadium. And so with this multi-purpose facility, there's tons of different sports. Right now, it'd be great to do an outdoor concert in the stadium, but there's, anything that's outdoors, you always risk, the weather. Football-wise, there's only so many opportunities. I think the Battle on the Border that the city does is a great event. Of course, the Independence Bowl, but a lot of those schools are really pulling back and keeping those home games at home. They're just not traveling neutrally. So I think a complex like this would make sense to go after, cheerleading, gymnastics. A lot that time period, the D-League would be between October and March, early April if they make the playoffs. I know that the convention center has some dates that tie up the expo hall. We really can't even do a big gymnastics event right now because we can't get expo space in April, May when we really need it. And so that's really, there's no other venue that could accommodate a regional type gymnastics event. I know cheerleading they pretty much have, but again we're real limited and really can't look at doing a regional event. The Bassmaster Classic, which is one that I know really was a great event, had a huge economic impact. I've got a text from them. Unless we build 90,000 square feet of exhibit space on the first floor that's next to the convention center, which this could possibly be, they're going to Houston and other larger markets with convention centers. So, I think it just opens up some options. And like when I was in Sacramento, they have the newest NBA venue in the country, and they were not a very good basketball team. But the reason we went to the NBA game was because it was about 5 blocks from the Convention Center Hotel. And so I've been in a lot of cities with NBA teams, but if it's not accessible, then I'm not going down there. So not only do you have the 10,000 downtown employees, but you also have the visitors that Stacy was talking about. And I think it can also help diversify some of the casino entertainment, that we're direly in need of. So I think it'll also help with economic growth around the facility.
Mayor, my final question to you is the proposal that you're putting together, the arena or the facility, is that of your decision, or you think that would sweeten the pot? How do you view that?
I don't want to get into too much of the RFP
Okay.
because we do want to be in the competition with Bradford. I can tell you that we're trying to put in, those things that we know others are doing across the country, and some others have put in the new sports complexes or arenas. We're calling our sports complex because we are going to use it year-round for other type sports and competitions regionally and statewide. And we feel like Shreveport is primed for this in that we are kind of the capital of the architects. When you look at East Texas, Arkansas, Mississippi, all across, we'll be drawing people from every place. So it's not just for Shreveporters, it's for people throughout the state and the architects. And so you know, I think it's going to be wonderful in that. It's a catalyst, and from this particular project, you're going to see a lot of more growth, and that means jobs, plenty of jobs for people who are unemployed. But I'd like for Mr. Crawford to speak for just a moment. He and I have worked diligently with other staff members on this project, on this RFP, trying to be competitive. So we don't want to give away the store, so to speak, until we're able to at least have a chance at it.
Mayor, thank you, Mayor. Mr. Chairman, and just to reiterate some of the comments that have been made and some of the questions that we've received since the news provided some information on the RFP. As mentioned before, we met with the Pelicans about 3 months ago, and they sought out Shreveport. We did not seek them out. They had done their due diligence. They had done their homework on mid-sized markets that they believe were advantageous to their product. They have already done their market study. They've already done their market research. They believe that populations with MSAs of 400 to 500,000 people, which we have, is ideal for this type of market. If you look at the 22 leagues, the 22 teams that are currently in the D League, there are some with significantly less populations than we have here that have seen a resurgence and enthusiasm and excitement because this brings the NBA moniker to Shreveport. And that's a whole new ball game, as the young lady from Canes had talked about earlier. And so when we started looking at facilities and sites, some of the questions had come up about, well, you know, we've got vacant buildings, we have structures, we have Hirsch, we have CenturyLink, we have the Gold Dome. We showed the New Orleans folks all of those structures, that they knew about them, and they were not something that met their model. So in other words, we could either submit for this RFP with a new structure, or we could not submit at all. And so the mayor, in her forethought, was we're not going to pass up this opportunity. We're at least going to present it to the public, to the council, and we're going to put our best foot forward. And so how do we put our best foot forward? We talked and reached out to Kelly with the Sports Commission. We reached out to Stacy, and we reached out to some other subject matter experts from other communities that do this for a living to answer some of your questions. Is this viable? And they said, you know, the stadium concept, the Coliseum concept of Hirsch is dead. Building a multi-use sports complex is something that can sustain itself. And so when people hear figures like $25 million and you're going to be taking that away from roads and infrastructure, look, we've done $49 million worth of roads in the last 2.5 years thanks to this council's help. That's more than was done in the last 8 years prior to that. And so we're doing those things. We're creating a business model that's not going to take away from the infrastructure. We're creating a business model that not is, but it has to sustain itself with those things that you talked about, whether it's sponsorship, ticket sales, concessions, the numerous other sports venues that can go into this complex, whether it's 2,500 seats or 3,500 seats, and you have 500 people there, 800 people there for a cheer competition. If you don't think people support amateur, they may not support professional competitions or those teams that have been here in the past, because you're trying to fill up a 50,000 seat stadium. You're trying to attract someone to a ball field in the middle of August when it's 101 degrees. This is inside, climate controlled, nice atmosphere, family friendly, affordable ticket pricing. We've already heard back from major sponsors who are willing to buy blocks of season tickets and provide some of those tickets to those who could not afford a ticket and go to the game. And so we're putting all of that into the business model so that the model will sustain itself. And so we're not paying from a road fund, or we're not paying from somewhere else and taking away any money that the city is currently using or may use in the future for other projects. And so I think this is a golden opportunity. Someone said there's only one thing that makes a dream impossible to achieve, and sir, that is the fear of failure. And so we can't be that community. We've been that community for too long. This is an outstanding opportunity that has been placed at our feet by the NBA's Pelican League. And so to not take advantage of it, to not submit and put our best foot forward to see if we can have that and give Shreveport a chance to be successful would be very unfortunate. And so that's where we are as far as the business model is concerned. Mike?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Thank you all so much for coming.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Was there any other question? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Wait just a minute, Kelly. I didn't check my board here.
I'll be very brief. The item on our agenda is just to support the idea of moving our proposal forward. That's it. And I certainly support that because we need to get a little further down the road and get some more details and know where we are. It's easy to look at past sports franchises and teams that have been here. We're not a Houston, a Dallas, an Atlanta. We're not a city with millions of people here that can support an NFL or an NBA team. But sports is very, very much in our blood in Shreveport. And so, if we find out as we move this down the road that this is a legitimate league, which by everything that we see so far certainly seems to be, if ticket prices are in a realm where normal people can go and have access to tickets, then I think it may be a very good thing for our city. We look at some of our past sports franchises, and I think they're not here for a variety of reasons. Their model was not sustainable internally. There were opportunities for people to sell their sports franchises and make a profit off of that, or move them to someplace else and make a profit because they had a better deal, and so that happened. But by and large, a lot of them, it's just market change. And, I told somebody earlier, I was one of the people who were at Fairgrounds Field weekly watching the Captains. But I also got in for $2 or $3, and a adult beverage was $1, and those days are gone. No matter where you go. So I think we have to look at what is this. If we support this and we want to move forward, let's see what can we get on the short list. If we're on the short list, what is the cost? And if that means looking at a multi-purpose arena with a guaranteed tenant, then that's another discussion. But we do see that may fill a void for other groups coming in here. So for what's on our agenda today, I certainly support moving ahead with finding out more details.
Thank you, Councilman.
Mr. Chairman, one final comment. We had some questions about our other professional sports teams here and the competition with the Rafters, who's our professional soccer team, which we support. We also got some questions about the Mud Bugs. The Rafter season is after the NBA D-League season stops, so there's no head-to-head competition there. The Mud Bugs and the D-League do overlap, but like in Frisco, Texas, where they play in the same arena, that can be scheduled in advance to where they're in town on alternate weekends, so we're not competing head-to-head with that sports fan, and they're able to enjoy both of those as well. So we continue to support our local sports franchises as much as we can, while entertaining the opportunity to bring in something else to enhance that.
And I'll just say briefly that I heard the question asked earlier what ticket price ranges might be, and while I can't speak for what the eventual result will be, I did pull up the NBA Development League website where it has all of the cities that currently have successful D-League teams. And by the way, I'm pretty sure that I think we can compete with some of these. I mean, if some of these cities can support an NBA D-League team, we can too. Some of these cities are the same size, if not smaller. But the price on these tickets ranges from everywhere from, I believe I saw the lowest ticket was $7 up to $20-something. Now those are for the least expensive seats, but that's a very accessible range, and a market, in some of these markets, in Chicago, that ticket's going to be closer to that $20. But in some of these markets, it's $7. So, I think it looks like they have a pricing flexibility that understands and caters to its home team market. So, certainly felt that was relevant to share.
Thank you, guys.
We have no objection from the council, but we do have some folks that want to make some comments. Is that okay with you all?
I mean, it's public comments section, right?
In regards to the, what's
In regard to the resolution? Sure. As long as we're talking about the resolution. I mean, I'm not interested in talking about how we're playing.
Is it for tomorrow?
I mean, it needs to be specific to the ordinance.
Tomorrow.
Huh? Now, this, we have,
Item on the agenda?
yeah, items on the
That
agenda.
was tomorrow.
Is it up for today?
Public comments on an agenda item are on Monday and Tuesday.
Correct.
Public items for non-agenda items are only at the end of the meeting on Tuesday,
Okay.
per our
Rules.
rules.
Me and I already spoke, so John Settle.
Yeah. But we can't.
My name is John Settle. I live at 33 Tealwood, Shreveport. I'll try to keep this to 3 minutes. It really disturbs me that the administration is pursuing a basketball team when we can't deal with crime. And I'm glad next year's an election year. I am counting the days. Some of you come for re-election, and there may be a mayoral contested election. Because if we don't think crime's going to be an issue, y'all need to wake up. I was at a forum a week or so ago at Willow Ridge. We had the mayor there, a commissioner there, Mr. Bradford there.
I am on the agenda now. That's what
In
we're
the
speaking.
resolution for the
Sports complex.
I think the sports complex is great. I know that the tourist people can put spins on dollars, but if the priority is going to be any type of tax dollars of any form, bonded or otherwise, I believe there's more pressing priorities than a sports arena. Much more pressing priorities. Talking about streets that are being paved, that's good. Those were by bonds passed by our prior administration. But if the sports arena is going to proceed, put the proposal in. But let's look at the reality of other things that need to be done. I don't think that arena is just going to appear out of the sky. I think it's probably going to take tax dollars of some sort, bonded or whatever. And if we're going to get to that, I think tax dollars can be better spent. I'll deal with this at another time, several times. Thank you.
All right.
Did have, I had one more I wanted to speak about, ordinance 60.
We can't do two things at one time.
Ron Lipo,
We can't focus on two things at one time. Just one.
is there a Ron Lipo here?
Yes, he is.
Mr. Lupo?
You'd like to speak on ordinance 60
Ordinance 60.
at this time?
Yes, sir.
No, it's
you can speak
ordinance
on any
60.
item on the agenda.
You signed up for
Yeah, come on
ordinance
up.
60.
And Ron, by the way, we did get your email, and City Attorney's Office and I had a chance to look at some of your questions, so we do have answers.
Okay.
You're welcome to make your.
I might not need to make any points then if I didn't know it was ordinance.
Please state your name. Please.
My name's
Three
Ron
minutes.
Lipo, and I am a resident of Shreveport, Louisiana. Have been all my life.
Okay.
And I had concerns about the two provisions that I saw published on Friday. One of them is regarding a catering permit, and the catering permit, the motivation behind the regulation is absolutely appropriate. There's a bad law on the books right now that's been ignored for a long time. Nobody even knew it was there. I've been in this business my entire life. My grandparents started my business, so I know that. And the effort is appreciated, and it was well done. I think there's one issue with it that could be confusing that should be clarified, and I think the best way to clarify that is to say that this refers to an event in which there's a cash bar. In other words, the caterer is actually selling to the consumer at this event. And I think that helps distinguish it from private parties. And I think probably everybody in this room would agree, and probably the proposing councilman would also say they don't really want if they're going to have a party at their house, don't necessarily want it to be registered with the police department, have a permit conspicuously placed in their house at the bar, and be subject to having the police come into their private establishment to check to make sure everything's okay. I think that's probably not what we're trying to accomplish here. And as Mr. Settle said, we probably have better things for the police department to be doing than that. And I think that's probably a clarification that would be agreeable.
I think what we were trying to do, and we may need some further clarification with you, so if you don't mind sticking around, or either I could give you a call tomorrow and we could talk with the city attorney's office to make sure that we do have a good understanding of everyone's mutual concern. One of the items that you had referred to is kind of a reflection of what's in the state law, and so we had understood it, I believe, that a caterer from the point, like I think that you do have to have a caterer's license if you're providing on-site catering services, even if it's at a private party. But like I say, I think we need to maybe get a little bit more clarity. Now, your other questions on 61, I think, those were very easy to answer because that was one of them you had mentioned about the difference and the kind of the blurring of the line of beer, liquor, and wine.
Right.
And that is a very good point, but we took that language straight out of the state law so that we would be consistent with state law. Once they kind of catch up to that change, I think that's a very good change to make, but that's where we got the language from, was a direct reflection of what was in the state
And
law.
I would say that there's a lot of good in reflecting the state law, but be a little cautious there. You're not actually reflecting it directly as you think you might be, and also state laws are old and decrepit and not up with the times also, so they're not necessarily needed in a lot of cases. Just because there's a state law, for example, a catering permit, most cities don't have one. They just work with let the state one ride, and the manufacturer rules are the same, that you don't necessarily need to have the distinctions that the state has. And I'm happy to talk to you about those further
I look forward
too.
to talking with you. And Karen over there, who's nodding her head, she's the one who's been really working closely with that. So if you have a minute to stick around, would love to talk with you after the meeting. If not, give me a call, and or I can give you a call.
I have time to stick around.
Perfect.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Crawford,
Yes, sir.
Where were we?
I think we had gotten through with consent agenda legislation. I think we're on resolutions on second reading and final passage, or which require only one reading. Is that where we're at? Yeah. Okay. Resolution 84 authorizes the mayor to execute a donation agreement between the City of Shreveport and Norris Ferry, LLC, hereinafter called owner, and acting herein through William L. Mayfield, manager of the private water and sewer improvements for St. Charles Place, unit number 14. Resolution 95 authorizing the mayor to enter into a cooperative endeavor agreement between the City of Shreveport and participating high schools through their government bodies relative to the Battle of the Borders 2018 High School Football Showcase and the use of city personnel, property, and equipment. Resolution 86 approving the budget for the Caddo Shreveport Sales and Use Tax Commission for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2017. Resolution 87 is a resolution finding that and determining that a public hearing has been held and that no petition has been filed objecting to the proposed issuance of the City of Shreveport, State of Louisiana for its water and sewer revenue bonds in the amount not to exceed $120 million, authorizing the officials of said city to proceed with the preparation of the documents requiring for the issuance of such bonds. Resolution 90 is a resolution pursuant to LARS 382212B 2-3A that extends the time delay for the low bidder on the project construction of Taxiway Inn extension to submit its Buy American Act documentation as required by the Federal Aviation Administration. Resolution 95 recognizes the accomplishments of Pastor Gregory Kirby and to dedicate Steeple Chase Plaza Drive from West 70th Street to Pines Road in honor of his extraordinary life. Resolution 96 is to remember and honor the life of Garcia May Salone Malone, an active and devoted citizen of Shreveport. Resolution 97 authorizes the mayor to dedicate the 400 block of Brookbriar Drive in honor of Randy Johnson. Resolution 98 is to allocate additional funds to other charges, civic appropriations from funds budgeted and other charges, promotions in the Riverfront Development Special Revenue Fund. And then Resolution 99 is to recognize and congratulate Mary Alice Roundtree for her many accomplishments as the Executive Director of the Caddo Council on Aging, to thank her for her successful efforts to help seniors and children throughout her career, and to wish her well in her retirement.
Mr. Crawford?
Yes, sir.
In regards to number 86,
Yes,
I
sir.
noticed that you and Mr. Madden are on that commission.
Yes.
Can you give me a hint as to why the budget on that travel went from up to $17,000 for that
We've
group?
got Mrs. Howell here, who's the director. If she could come up and answer that question, and she's intimately familiar with the budget, and I'm glad sure she can answer that question for you.
Thank you, Mr. Crawford.
Thank you for coming.
Hi, I'm Gail Howell.
Gail
the-
Howard?
Howell.
Howell?
The
Okay.
administrator for the County of Shreveport Sales and Use Tax Commission.
My question is concerning mileage, travel, and meetings. You were, I believe, asking for, they went quite jumped there to 17,000. You were asking for 16. They gave you 1,000 more on that budget. Why?
It actually went down 1,000. I reduced it by 1,000.
Okay. Why? What kind of mileage, travel, or meetings do you have?
That's for my 13 employees. We go to conferences around the state, and my auditors go out of town to do audits, and we have to pay mileage and food and hotel lodging. And it's normally around, let's see, last year it was 12,000, and I anticipate 13,000 this year. It has been that 17,000 in the budget, probably for the last 5 years. But I have never actually used that amount.
Okay.
You're not planning a trip to New York, are you? Or
No, we'll stay in
just want to make
Louisiana.
sure that wasn't on a...
I don't go anywhere outside of Louisiana. All the conferences and everything.
Just
are-
question.
The salaries there, I noticed are budgeted for 2016, 536,000. Is that pretty much in line?
2016 is 536,000. It's actually going to be under that. It fluctuates. I have people quit, and then
Okay.
like now I have an auditor position, and I'm advertising for experience. But if no one experience comes around, then it'll be less. So it fluctuates a little bit by that.
And you're part of the city retirement?
We are part of the city retirement
Okay.
and health insurance.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. All right. Anybody have any questions on any of this? Mr. Frost?
Yes, sir. We're under introduction to resolutions not to be adopted prior to June the 13th, 2017. Resolution 100 is a resolution selecting the Times as the official journal for the city of Shreveport for the period commencing July 1st, 2017 through June 30th, 2018. And Resolution 101 selects the Shreveport Sun as the auxiliary official journal for the city of Shreveport for the period commencing July 1st, 2017 through June 30th, 2018.
Okay. Any
Chairman.
questions? Yes, Mr. Pratt.
I think he beat me to the punch.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Did you?
Yeah.
I thought somebody else was recognized. I apologize. I was really just clicking in, and I apologize. It was for one from the last section. I just wanted to make sure. I know I had a chance to visit with a couple of you, but I wanted to make sure if anyone had questions about Resolution 98. That was the one where, we allocated some funding from to two organizations, and because of basically just an accounting difference, it needs to be allocated
Different
out
pot
of
of
a
money.
different section. Same pot of money, same money being allocated, but just out of a different place. So just wanted to, if anybody does have questions about that, feel free to reach out.
Next is Mr. Chief, Councilman Chief.
Okay, so question number one, when I read the auxiliary official journal, since this is the first time I've been involved with the auxiliary official journal.
That's a good word, auxiliary. Huh?
So the idea is that when we have to advertise more than once for something, we would advertise once in the auxiliary and once in the Times. Is that the concept? I mean,
I think if we had, for instance, to advertise something 3 times, we could advertise once in the auxiliary journal.
okay.
And twice in the regular.
And just out of curiosity, how many times a year do we do something like that?
Not a lot, I don't think.
Anytime I guess a lease would come up, or not even when you're levying. I mean, it's rare.
Okay, so we think there's some value of, is there truly any value added in this particular case, I guess, first and foremost. And then secondly, well, I guess I want the answer to that question. I mean, is there a significant amount of revenue that we're talking about to have this other contract, or?
This is the first time we've done it, and I think if you read the second paragraph, and these paragraphs are taken directly out of state law, it seems to indicate that you can advertise in the auxiliary journal sort of as a duplicate if you want to.
That sounds like spending more money than we have to.
Not necessarily.
You can read the second paragraph and see it. We haven't started doing any of this, so we haven't.
Okay, so just so we're clear, I'd like an answer to ultimately, if we can assure by voting on this that we're not incurring additional expenses, because that is what is going to be deterministic of my vote. I'm not sure other people feel otherwise. I also would like us to consider requesting some type of opinion from the state to remove us from this requirement at all. I do not believe in today's modern age half this advertising that we do still needs to be in a paper, which has, unfortunately I don't have anything against the Times, but this circulation is less and less, and I don't think it's really serving its purpose. But I think we talked about this a couple of years ago, that when would we get to such a point in time when we no longer have to advertise, when there's so many digital media functions out there? And I don't know if we've ever gotten an answer back, or we've ever bothered to ask that question.
Well, I think that the only way that you can get out of it is to change state law. State law could exempt cities 100,000 or more, but good luck on getting that done. But that's the only way to do it.
And why do you say, truthfully, why do you say good luck?
Whenever we've tried to change this at all, for instance, once we tried to change the dates, that we have to publish the minutes within 7 days of the date when the meeting is held. We had all of the newspapers basically come out against us in the state.
I get that. And so, but if you notice, there's a little fervor down there about cutting expenditures by government lately. There's clearly that, maybe there's a pretty strong paper lobby out there. I don't deny it, but
I think that you would, you need, this would be one of the bills that you would offer the legislature to change the law, because I don't think there's any way out of it without changing it.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me say that there is value in creating and having an auxiliary official journal, because the Times, certainly subscriptions are not what they were, but more importantly, the reason that we are proposing, Council Leader Lynch and I are proposing the Shreveport Sun as an auxiliary journal, is because there's a large section of this town who are African American, who does not receive the Times, and some are not on social media. The Sun's subscription is maintaining itself. They've been around such a long time, and it's almost like a if you want to know what's going on in Shreveport, especially within the black community, you get a Suns. And we felt that given the demographics and the opportunities that we would afford all of our citizens, that we would have the Sun participating in the exposing of information from the city. the parish uses Sun. But it's important to understand and know and realize that when we came on the council a year and a half ago, we changed the way we would do our minutes. You know, we went to summary minutes, and going to summary minutes has saved us thousands of dollars. And any additional cost of engaging an auxiliary journal, the savings from that for the last year and a half would certainly make that, I think, more appealing to exposing the city's work and business to the majority. I mean, a large section of the city who's not currently getting that information, and what I think will play a major role in how, you know, we will get responses from various items and issues that comes before us, so that we need to expose to the public. I've spoken with the owner of the Shreveport Sun, Ms. Sonia Laundrie. Ms. Laundrie, can you come up for a second, please? I want to ask her to come up, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Good afternoon, Ms. Laundrie. How are you?
I'm fine, Councilman. How are you?
Good. We spoke regarding your ability to be our auxiliary journal. Give us a little history of the Shreveport Sun and tell me what your subscription, what your capacity of assisting us in this area.
Well, the Shreveport Sun has been in Shreveport since 1920. We are the state's oldest black newspaper, black weekly newspaper. So we have historical value. We've been established in the community here. We are not just in Shreveport, when I mean that we mail out across the country to Shreveport former residents that might be interested in what's going on. We're on the newsstands across the city. So we're accessible to anyone. It's not just to the black community. We are a professional organization. We're a member of the Louisiana Press Association, the National Newspaper Publishers Association, and the Louisiana Black Publishers Association. As I said, or as you know, we are one of the journalists for the Cattle Parish Commission. We come out in a timely manner. We would love to serve as the city's auxiliary journal to capture that audience that you may be missing for your notices and things that you might want the community to know.
Are you currently doing any publication for the city?
We do some from the city. We do get the city budget, and I think that's just about it.
And your rates are, I'm sure, less than it.
Much
less than the time.
And if we could get a feel for exactly what we're talking about, I'm sure we could give a very good rate as far as, you know, what we would charge, which would not be our local rate.
Okay, listen, I appreciate you. I'm a subscriber, been a subscriber for more than 30 years, I guess. And it's almost like, for a lot of people, if you want, you know, if you don't reach the Sun by Thursday, you don't know what's going on in some sectors. And I think this will certainly enhance the exposure that the city would have in getting information out. Like I said, I didn't want to limit it to the black community, but I know that it's on newsstands and a variety of places, most of the supermarkets and other places. So.
And we do mail out. We do have
I think
mail
most of your
subscribers.
subscriptions are.
And as I said, we are on the web. We have a website.
Yeah, website.
So it's not like we're just the print copies.
Okay. And again, Mr. Chairman, the fact that we went to summary minutes a year and a half ago has been beneficial, as well as our meeting timelessness has decreased, which means that there's been less resources paid for overtime and things like that. So I see a very valuable and worthwhile and a progressive initiative in engaging the Shreveport sign in this endeavor. Yes, sir. Are you, sir?
Other than your subscription, do you know how many subscriptions they have? Is it less than 5,000?
Ms. Long?
Well, we put out 5,000 every week.
Every week.
But by being a weekly, and we always assume that at least 3 or 4 other households are going to get a copy of the paper. We're there until the next week. So anyone looking for information, we're there for anybody that wants to look at it. It's not such that today is here and then tomorrow is gone. So we're around households from one week to the next week.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And again, the issue of frequency would be determined. I think being on record, putting the sign on record as being our auxiliary journal would be very noted in this town, and it would be in the long run beneficial for this city, as well as giving the Shreveport Sun this opportunity, since we're talking about opportunities today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Lane. Councilman Porter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When we look for an official journal, does an RFP go out for that? How does that process work?
Well, we generally don't send out an RFP because there's only one journal that can meet our demands because of our charter. The Shreveport Sun comes out on Thursday officially, and I think they might hit the streets on Wednesday afternoon.
We're on the streets Wednesday afternoons.
But we have to have our minutes published on Tuesday, no later than Tuesday.
All right. And my second question is, the Times proposal that's attached here, is that a significant increase from last year? No increase. Okay, that's all.
Thank you.
One question, and just so I'm clear, your 5,000 though is printed copies?
Right.
And do you know of that circulation, what percentage stays in Shreveport and what is sent outside of Shreveport?
I can say that the majority of our circulation is within the city. I'll say maybe about 10% we mail out outside the city.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
And my question is, on minutes, that's a recurring expense. Do we break out advertising separate and apart from minutes?
Yes.
I'd love to see, because ultimately, I'm going to just carry my thought earlier. The advertising of something, I think, has value. I struggle to see the value of the summary minutes in the public domain at the moment. But
Well, when I say we break it out, a part of the what's in the minutes is advertisement, so to speak. In other words, it's the title of the ordinances that will be considered in resolutions, and also the ordinances and resolutions that have been adopted. So we are required to publish those by our charter, and that's the way we publish them.
But in terms of when I say advertising, I think of advertising similar to this tax renewal and
That's
these
different,
other.
yeah.
That's a different bucket of money, right?
Well, it's
I mean, or it's a
we do it
separate line
different.
item on our
Yeah,
budget.
but not on our budget. I think it's all in there together. But if we needed to, we could go back and
You could
say
pull
for
that.
6 months or a year, figure out.
I'd like to just see that out of curiosity. Thank you.
Okay, I believe that's
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, you ready?
Yes, sir.
Introduction of ordinances not to be adopted prior to June 13, 2017. Ordinance 56 amends the 2017 Airport Enterprise Fund budget. It's a companion to Ordinance 57 amending the 2017 capital improvements budget. This is moving about $1.7 million for 6 various airport projects from their reserve to capital. Ordinance 58 amends the 2017 capital improvements budget. This is a $1 million improvement for security enhancements at the airport. $900,000 of that is paid by the FAA, and the other $100,000 is paid for by LADOTD in their aviation division. Ordinance 59 amends Section 62, Article 2, Division 1 of the City of Shreveport Code of Ordinances pertaining to the Department of Public Assembly and Recreations related to dog park regulations. Ordinance number 60 amends sections of Chapter 10, Alcoholic Beverages of the Shreveport City Code of Ordinances relative to the catering of alcohol. Ordinance 61 amends Chapter 10, Alcoholic Beverages of the Shreveport City Code of Ordinances relative to the relative to manufacturers. Ordinance 62 authorizes the mayor to execute a lease of city-owned property to Aaron L. Puckett Incorporated and to otherwise provide with respect thereto. Ordinance 63 amends sections of Chapter 63 Historic Preservations of the Shreveport City Code of Ordinances relative to the definitions, duties, appointments, alternate members, and removing the requirements for the Metropolitan Planning Commission to approve the Historic Preservation Commission's guidelines. Ordinance 64 is a zoning ordinance, C-39-17, amending Chapter 106 of the Code of Ordinances, the City of Shreveport zoning ordinances by rezoning property located on the east side of Esplanade, 2,770 feet north of Greenwood Road, Shreveport, Cattle Parish, Louisiana, changed from R1D Urban One Family Residential District to R1D PUD Urban One Family Residential Plan Unit Development. And then Ordinance 65 is a zoning ordinance as well, C-41-17, amending Chapter 106 of the Code of Ordinances, the City of Shreveport zoning ordinances by rezoning property located on the south side of Brook Hollow Drive, 415 feet west of Burt Coons Industrial Loop, Shreveport, Cattle Parish, Louisiana, from B3 Community Business District to B3 PUD, Community Business Plan Unit Development District.
Any questions? Yeah. I'm sorry, excuse me.
Not a question, but I did just want to briefly talk about a couple of the ordinances I have on for introduction here, and then some that I may be able to answer a question on or two. You may not have them yet, but just to let people know. First of all, I do want to thank Karen Strand, who has been super hardworking, and a lot of that work has been coming from me lately, so I appreciate you, Karen. But some of the things that are on here that I wanted to mention, one is in respect to the dog park. You know, right now the opening is shortly ahead of us, and in light of the fact that we passed our ordinances pertaining to how a dog park would work a long time ago. They were still kind of new. We didn't have a whole lot of best practices to go off of. And what we've done is we've looked at some of the cities who've had these dog parks open and operating for several years now, and the SPAR has reached out to them and gotten kind of an idea of what works the best there. And this represents some of the changes that Shelley and the team are recommending for that. Secondly, Ordinance 60 and 61 are changes to the alcohol code. I think most of you are all aware of the fact that Chapter 10 is getting a full rewrite, but there are a few items that continue to come up that people are kind of needing a quicker decision on, and there are things that generally the group that's working, the committee that's working on that is pretty comfortable with, and so we thought we could go ahead and introduce a few of these to get these out of the way and let them focus on some of the other points in the rewrite. And so those are specific to the catering permits for alcohol and the permit that deals with manufacturers like breweries. The other one that I wanted to mention briefly is Ordinance 63, which is some changes to our historic preservation Chapter 36. And essentially there what we're looking at doing is just in relation to essentially the design review guidelines. That's what makes it enforceable, and it's taken that committee a little while to refine this, and this is kind of to help us when they are ready to suggest this to us. This will help us adopt it a little bit faster, and so that's the intent of this, as well as maybe cleaning up a couple other things that we might need to clean up in that ordinance. So if anybody has questions, feel free to reach out.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Bradford?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 59, all right, I'm going back to the dog park. What's the rationale in this amendment, or this modification that wasn't in the original dog park usage responsibility?
Well, for instance, it's things like in the original one, I think we were requiring a separate tag be purchased in order to go to the dog park, whereas this allows your rabies tag to suffice as your identification tag in the dog parks. This is something that everybody else is doing with great success, and something that if we were to do it the way we had initially envisioned it, it would actually cost us some money to administer that, and this saves us from having to do that. So it's things like that where we've just had the time now to ask other cities who have these what's working and not working, and make those changes.
Yes, ma'am.
That's correct.
That's correct.
Here it is.
There you go.
Well, let me ask you this. Two questions. We must be getting close.
Yes, sir, we are.
Okay. How will the dog park be supervised? How would we monitor some of these, like the children restrictions and the healthiness of the animal? How would that be known?
The city with Caddo Parish both will, make periodic visits to the park, but like every park that we have where we have rules and guidelines, they are all, self-monitored. The skate park, we don't have anybody there full time. When you go any of our facilities where we have rules and regulations, it's incumbent upon the citizens to protect their parks and the activities that they do there.
So
no full-time staff will be allocated there.
So it is possible that somebody who has an unvaccinated dog or could be in the park.
Could be, yes. I'm not gonna.
I mean, just a matter of policing it. What day you're there and what you observe, or you.
Yes, sir.
There
are fines. There are fines for violating those rules and regulations too.
Okay. Okay. All right. So when you say we're almost there, give me an estimate of what you're looking at.
Midsummer, we've been looking at ribbon cutting dates last week. Yes. Letting some grass grow in before we put the dogs on it.
Thank you, Michelle. And I'm sorry. Help me understand 64, Councilman Bowman. The rezoning for PUD. What's that about?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
If I may.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
That is the Shreveport Country Club, PUD, that you probably have heard about. And because of some ordinance changes that occurred a few years ago, an appeal was not necessary. It came directly to the City Council from the MPC. And this is that legislation that is now on the agenda.
Why am I looking at so many tracts of property?
Because that's all of the country club.
That's all the country club?
Yes. The country club, under this ordinance, becomes one big PUD. I don't know if we have anybody from MPC. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay.
So
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sure. So this was an application for a planned unit development. It was zoned R1D. It is being rezoned to R1D planned unit development to allow for a drug rehab facility on the southern 62 acres of the site, which is actually where the country club facilities are currently.
The site of the country club facility
Yes, sir.
now.
And part of that deal is part of the amenities. If you recall, with the planned unit development, they typically ask for an additional use or ordinance relief in exchange for providing certain amenities back to the community or to that particular development. In this situation, the applicant is making the promise to preserve the layout of the country club as it is today, that would be enhanced with and maintain the landscaping, the walking trails, The buildings themselves would be then converted into the different facilities that they need for the rehab
Only
operation.
the interior.
Huh?
It's on the buildings, the interior.
We're on the interior, that is correct. And so they're basically wanting to maintain that appearance as a country club, kind of an aesthetic, a pleasing pastoral setting for their clients, and to be complementary to the single-family neighborhood that's nearby. The other portion of the property, which is the 117 acres to the north, they had as a phase 2, because that's phase 1 is the rehab facility. Phase 2 is for a single-family residential development that would be developed in that area in the future. There's no definitive plans as to exactly when they would do that, but that area would also be, have some of the amenities that we're talking about in terms of the way it's laid out as far as the future development of that portion of the property.
Mr. Sweeney, Mr.
Sure, I hear.
Now, this is where I come in.
Sure.
On my amendment.
Sure.
To this zoning. Sure. I have an amendment that's being prepared. I didn't quite make the deadline.
Right.
Members of council, what I'm going to offer in my amendment is that we restrict to the 61 acres, which will be 6 holes. It'll be continuous to the country club. There'll be no change to the outward appearance of the country club. Now, the interior will be changed around to meet what they have, but the 61 hole, that 100 and something acres that he's talking about will go back to the original zoning, which is zoned at this time for a cemetery. Don't know that ever happened. But the housing concern that the citizens have would go away under my amendment. That makes sense?
It does.
I'm trying to meet.
So basically what you're saying is you want to approve just the 62 acres for the rehab facility and not approve the other
That's right.
portion. That's correct. So phase 1,
and I
but
did
no
have
phase
that
2.
in the council office, but I just hadn't quite gotten it on time. Yes,
Well, and I recognize I was a little tardy getting here.
That's okay.
But I do notice that they're here, so have they gotten an opportunity to
No,
speak
sir.
about their development?
No, sir, they hadn't, and I'm glad you.
So, I would encourage them to come up and
Look
give
at the
us
crowd, Jenkins, you're exactly right. Thank you, sir. I'm sorry.
I have the floor.
I'm sorry, you do. And once you get through, I'll bring them up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Sweeney, I'm really concerned about the way this has been fashioned. Help me understand now. There was a NBC hearing regarding this property,
Yes, sir.
and the residents of that area had opportunity to come and voice their concerns about that.
Yes, sir.
The NBC voted to what?
NBC voted 5-4 to deny the
To
application.
deny the application.
That's correct.
Okay. And this amendment, Mr. Attorney, would circumvent the appeal process.
Right. There's no need for an appeal process.
I'm sorry?
There is no appeal process.
Right.
So when why was there a hearing?
Well, there was a hearing at the MPC.
Right.
But
It's
the
a
way,
recommendation.
let me kind of bring your memory
Okay,
back.
help me
here.
out.
When this is before you came on council,
Okay.
when the Camp 4 being development was trying to come through, we amended the plan unit development portion of the ordinance that said in essence that if the MPC either recommended approval or denial, the case still had to come to the city council for final decision. So
Okay.
that's why it's before you for final decision.
Okay.
And what Mr. Fleury is trying to do is, in essence, he's going to be offering an amendment of only approving part of that case and not the other half of the case.
Essentially approves part and defers the rest.
That's right.
Okay, but I understand his intention, but
Right.
I've heard from people that there was never an intention of putting a low-income housing establishment in there anyway. Was that a part of something that you was aware of?
Well, the applicant has never said it was going to be low-income housing. And because of its location, basically it should be market-driven value housing that would have been built there.
Okay.
I'm sure that in the process of the public hearing, there were people that that posed the concern that it might be low-income housing or Section 8 housing, but none of that's been verified. That was a future development that the applicant had intentions at some time probably selling the land to someone to build a subdivision there. But as far as what that housing would be, we know that the minimum lot size would be 7,000 square feet, and that there was a potential for as many as 350 to 370 housing sites for this development. But again, the applicant was pursuing that as a future development with only the intention of moving forward with the other portion of the project by selling that to a company out of Monroe that was going to build the rehab facility.
Now, Mr. Chairman, I will
Thank you.
yield to the developers.
Yes. Would y'all come forward?
Mr. Swain, why they coming up? What can actually go there right now?
I'm sorry, say that again, please,
What
sir.
can actually go there right now?
Okay, so let me explain this to you. As of May the 15th, now remember, they made this application under the old 106 code, okay? So we have to hear it from that perspective. Okay. As of May the 15th, this property was technically designated as OS, open space zoning, which is what we do for all the parks and golf courses now throughout the city, okay? So if you take the action of approving both parts of this project, Phase 1 and Phase 2, then it will be designated as R1 PUD, and then under the UDC, it'll be called R17 PUD because the designation changes. That's all that would happen. If you only approve the southern half for the rehab facility, it would go in as the R17 PUD under the UDC, okay? On that northern portion, the remaining where the single-family housing development would be, if you don't approve that, it will go in as OS or open space zoning, which would allow for a cemetery, which would allow for other types of recreational uses, or could be turned into a park. But it will be not, single-family development will not be allowed on that property going forward unless the applicant comes through with an application to change that. Does that make sense?
Recreation only, nothing else. No.
Right, recreational type uses only, but also allows for things such as cemeteries as well.
And one quick thing while you're up there.
Yes.
Had this process started today as opposed to 2 months ago, it would go straight. It would not be going to the MPC at all. It would just come to us, or it would go straight from the MPC to where?
Okay. Those rules are still the same. It would have started with the MPC board first and then come to you for a final decision. Those rules of having it come before the MPC and then coming to you were established back in that 2014 amendment and were sustained in the same way in the UDC. So in other words, today, you would have still, if they were making application today, they would be having to go through the exact same process.
Same process. And
Yes.
they would still, MPC still offer only this, quote, advisory.
Yes, sir.
Recommended vote.
That's
rather
right.
than-
That's correct. You would still have final say, and will so on all plan unit developments going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Swain. Wait a minute. What do you got? I believe I got
Councilman
Corbin.
My question's answered.
Okay. We good, Joe? Okay. Okay. Please give us your name, address, please.
My name
For
is
the
Denny
record.
Duran, and I live at 5717 Lakefront Drive here in Shreveport.
Okay.
My dad and I have pastored the same church concurrently for 60 years this year. And we love this city, every part of it. We've settled in West Shreveport. That's where our church is located. That's where our School of Evangel Christian Academy is located. And we love the citizens. During the MPC meeting, there were some genuine concerns by the neighborhood residents that were brought up that I was not the rebuttal in that meeting, so I didn't have an opportunity really to answer some of those concerns. But I'd like to address some of those things now with your permission. The first thing is that we did consider the neighbors and communicate with them early on. In fact, there is, you can Google the Shreveport Country Club neighborhood meeting, and there is something will come up that'll say KTPS March 2nd. March 2nd was the first neighborhood meeting. It was the largest neighborhood meeting. Councilman Bowman, who I have a great deal of respect for, was at that meeting. So was our state representative. And I think the other two meetings were probably half of the attendance of that meeting. There wasn't a place to sit. I stood for, what would you say, Councilman Bowman, at least an hour. I stood 45 minutes or an hour. I stood before the people and just allowed them to share what they felt would be best for that property. The first two people that shared said that they had love for it to be a cemetery, thought it would be a great cemetery. After that, 95% of the people at least shouted them down and said, no cemetery, period. We don't want a cemetery. It was at the end of that conversation, discussion, that honestly was mostly the people. I was not doing anything except kind of being a moderator at that point, that I shared the fact that we were having an opportunity to enter into a contract with this rehab center. Now, when I tell you that there was not one negative thing said in that room, there was not one negative thing said. In fact, the interviews that KTBS did were positive on the matter. The next thing that I heard was weeks later, when there was another meeting called, and it was in a library. I didn't get an invitation to that meeting, so I didn't have an opportunity to answer the concerns. And by the time I was able to attend a meeting, the thing I feel had been blown out of proportion. Now, please let me clarify. I don't think that these people, in the way that they were seeing this and the lens that they were looking through, were unrealistic. I just think they were looking through the lens of the information that had been given to them. I don't know who gave them the information, but all I can tell you is I really, honestly, in my heart, do not feel that there is anything to fear with this hospital, this rehab center, going into this country club. And may I just share 4 or 5 things that I feel would answer some of the questions. Number one is this: the Shreveport Country Club was built with the buffering of the neighborhood in mind, obviously. You know, I was an old quarterback, and I measure everything by yards. And what I can tell you is that I can't stand on the front porch of that clubhouse and hit any of those houses across the street. And I can still throw it 40 yards, I promise you. But it's that far away. Now, the only houses that are in close proximity are actually on the west side. My mother owns one of those 4 houses, and it is adjacent to it. Some of the houses that were in question by some of the neighborhood members the other day at MPC, and I've walked it off now, and I will tell you that those houses are a half mile as the crow flies from that clubhouse, from the place where there's going to be the rehab center. It's further than that if you take the drive. Others are a quarter of a mile away. Some are further than that. These houses, many of them that are in question, and the people that stood here and talked, they don't even have a sight line to the building. So what I can tell you is the Shreveport Country Club was built with natural buffering. Here are my concerns. This is the only solution that is going to leave the nostalgia of the Shreveport Country Club in place, where everybody is able to drive by and see the same thing that they've been seeing all this time. Secondly, there was a concern about traffic. Well, what about traffic? Well, I've had this club for 8 years. We've rented it out on Saturday nights and on Friday nights. May I tell you that there have at times been 400 cars there. We park them, and that those parties have lasted to well beyond midnight. We didn't sell them the booze. I told them, I said, I'm a preacher. I can't do that. I said, but they always, almost always, we're able to employ people and bring people in, that we're able to give them an open bar. Those people were driving through those neighborhoods. You understand. This is the most non-invasive thing. Actually, nobody will know they're there. Here's another thing that is in question. 55 new jobs is a big deal in our city anywhere, but it's really a big deal in West Shreveport. 55 new jobs are coming there. Now, these are not jobs they're bringing from Monroe or anywhere else. They are new jobs. They're going to hire people from right here, professional people from right here. They're not going to move people in from Monroe to run this thing. They're going to hire 55 new people, and that doesn't include the groundskeepers, because the groundskeepers, that's a new deal that they're going to have to do as far as keeping the grounds manicured and nice. And one of the questions was, we don't want people wandering our neighborhoods. You know, this center is not like my center. My center is a faith-based center. We take anybody, even if you can't pay, we're going to try to help you. That's not what this is. This is business. And if you go to this center, you got insurance. You're gainfully employed. You have insurance that pays the big bill. And these people wouldn't be in this business if it were not a moneymaker. So what I can tell you is, if these people leave that property, they're getting discharged, just like a hospital. They have 24/7 care and observation. And as far as the security of the area, what I can tell you is, what they're going to do is add security. Property values. Like I said, my mom owns the closest house to the country club. My son, who's here, lived in that house for 6 months. They bought a 2,800, my mom bought a 2,800 square foot home for $60,000. All I can tell you is the property values are not great right now. I think that when we bring energy and economy into this sector, into this place, that there's a chance that everything improves. I'm a firm believer, and I don't know the way that you feel, Mayor, but I can tell you that I'm a firm believer that energy begets energy. I believe life begets life, and life is going to be there. What we can guarantee is this: if this place comes here, it won't be boarded up. Now, here's what you have to understand. Contrary to popular opinion, I'm not going broke. And I'm not just losing everything. I don't have to sell this property. And if I don't get the price for it that I won't sell it. But what I will tell you is this: while I will keep it up, and while I promise you I'm not going to allow it to just totally disintegrate right before our eyes, I can't keep it up to the level that has been kept up in the past. And what I can guarantee you is, if this thing comes in, it's not going to ever be boarded up. It is going to have life in it. And we are putting a clause in right now to the contract that if something happens to that center, that I have the first right of refusal. So they can't sell it to just something else. I have the first right of refusal. I'm not the guy that is going to just leave this thing. I'm not leaving the neighborhood. I live there. I am in West Shreveport. I want to lift this place. I really do. And some of you have had, I appreciate you taking my invitation to come and just allow me to show you around and show you the things that we're doing. I took a couple of city council members and just showed them what we were doing in the city, because it dawned on me, nobody really knows I don't think you know what we're doing really in West Shreveport in the city. And my own city council member has not been on our property, and it was just great to be able to show him around. All of you are going to receive invitations in the next week, because whether this deal goes down or not, I just feel it's important for me to just show you our heart and the way that we want to invest in the city. And I hope that you'll accept my invitation to come and just let me show you around, and to show you Shreveport Community Church and Evangel Christian Academy, and let me introduce you to some of the people that we work with and that work with us. Are there any questions?
Councilman Bradford, on the board.
Pastor Ron, I've been knowing you for years. Man of integrity. And I mean, you pretty much said everything that I needed you to say, especially your sensitivity. I was at the last meeting. I think that was the last one at the library,
Yes.
and you heard those concerns and expressions. On my way over there, I think I mentioned it, that I saw some people walking across the property, and that somehow there's been a breach in the fence or whatever, and I told those in attendance that I did not want to see it become something where undesirable things would start happening over there.
Right.
But at the same time, you and I heard the voice of those people,
Right.
some of it, and I think we agreed on it, and since have ascertained that it was misguided information that they had regarding what was going to happen over there. Very sensitive, I thought you were, in the developers and in receiving that information.
Thank you, sir.
How do you view? Did you say? Let me before I ask that question. Did you say that in the initial meetings there was less opposition or concern regarding the rehab center than it was anything else?
I think Councilman Bowman will tell you there wasn't any opposition at that point. That there was a very positive feeling in the House. Would you say, Council?
I agree. And so the concern was these other rumors that was going to be happening over there.
Yeah, the next thing I heard was our property values are going to plummet. That was the next thing I heard. And, you know, out of curiosity, I'm just that kind of guy. I just Googled, I said, where are the highest property values in the nation? And Malibu, California came up. I said, I wonder how many rehab centers they have. They have 34 of these. And a lady who lived in L.A. County said, well, yeah, but they have these arroyos and this natural kind of topography that separates those centers from the residential. Well, that's not true. My son went to graduate from Pepperdine, and he lived there for 4 years, and they have these centers right in the residential areas. But what we have to understand is when we hear drug rehab center, what we think about is 24 guys and gals that are dressed like they just, you know, crawled out of a gutter with cigarettes hanging out of their mouths, all over, loitering all over the neighborhood. That's not what this is. This is a business, and people are being sent there many times by their companies, sometimes by their families, and they're being sent there at the expense of insurance or private payment. This is a business. And now let me just say this: we're not leaving people out, because I have a center right across the line in Texas that I've operated for 20 years, and we've had 3,500 men come through that center. So if somebody doesn't have all that stuff, we'll take them tomorrow. And we do that every day. But this one is not mine, number one. It's the people in Monroe. They're buying it from me. I'm not a part of this, but I have great confidence in the people.
So, Pastor, my questions are: the rehab center coming to that area is predicated on the sale. I mean, on the change for them to acquire the property.
Right, absolutely. We have no deal. If there's no zoning, then there's no deal.
Okay.
And I don't have another deal on the table.
Okay. And secondly, how many acres?
Well, the acreage that we own is 181 acres.
Okay.
There's like 20-something acres that's right at the front of the property. When you come off of Greenwood, and then you come down into the front entrance, there's like 21, 24 acres that I own right there. I'm retaining that. That's all wooded area. And I'm not doing anything with that.
Okay.
I'm leaving that as actually a wooded buffer between the club and that residential property. And then what we're doing is the 61 acres or 62 acres that goes with the country club building.
Right.
They are keeping 6 acres. Well, if you were to just look, if you were to stand in that ballroom and look out of that panoramic window, what you would see is that from the street, all you're going to see is that beautiful 6 holes. And then you'll see, the country club, and everything will look exactly the same. They do not want to do new construction.
Okay.
Their architects are busy finishing up plans, potential plans, to be able to just redo that whole clubhouse. I don't know why I call it the clubhouse. What do you call that? I've owned it for 8 years. I still don't know the name of it. Anyway, the ballroom, all of that's there. they're going to redo all of that on the inside.
Okay. And it could, I mean, it can modify it to what purpose they want to.
Right. There'll be 30, they want 35 beds. And so there will be 35 beds, 55 employees. This is a high volume kind of thing.
My last two questions are,
of employees.
So 61 or 62 is what they're intending to acquire.
Yes, 62 acres.
So you have 120 left.
Right.
You would assume you would maintain that property of what?
Right. If we make the sale, then I will maintain this property until we are able to sell the rest of it.
Okay.
Now, like I said, I don't have anybody who's been interested in it knocked on my door at all at this point, regretfully. But right now, that is our commitment. And the sale would give us the funds to be able to set aside something to be able to take care of the rest of it, so none of us have an eyesore out there.
So you're saying that the care of the premise would be your responsibility, and you intend to
Of the 100, yes, of the rest, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Now,
I don't want to lose the golf course feel, because you honestly, Councilman, you never know when somebody's going to want to revive the Shreveport Country Club. You just don't know. That could happen. Somebody could do that just because of nostalgia. They just would like to come in and revive.
So my last question, Pastor, is, and I'm familiar with the facility and the grounds. If they acquire that frontage, 61 or 62 acres, how would future development happen on the backside? There's no access, is it?
There are no buildings.
I mean, there are roads.
Oh no, there are no roads. It would have to go to back to zoning if someone had to propose something. But here's the thing I can guarantee you: we're not building anything shabby in that neighborhood. That's not going to happen. If it stays a park, then it stays a park. But we're not going to build as the neighbors said it this way: junky apartments. Okay, so that's not happening. It's just not going to happen. And like I said, I didn't get here yesterday. Go look at the way we've spent our lives over these last 60 years, giving to this neighborhood because it's our delight. We love it. It's not sacrificial for us. We love it, and we want to leave this better than we found it.
Pastor, I would never question your honesty and integrity. I mean, you're a proven citizen, A1 good citizen for this city, have been always. And my only, if I have any concerns,
yes,
and I probably need to speak with somebody from the neighborhood, is that their voice, because of the process that got us here tomorrow, for tomorrow's vote, sort of eliminated them unless they come here in the morning or tomorrow afternoon and take up some time to express their concern.
Just a clarification, we're only
introducing
introducing this.
Oh, I'm sorry, introduce it, okay. So we had 2 weeks. So I withdraw that concern because I can engage them in 2 weeks. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, quick thing, Pastor, if you wouldn't mind, I don't necessarily, this doesn't have to be in the total public domain, so an email or something I think would be interesting to me is, I know the gentleman who's proposed purchasing this has several of these facilities, or at least one in Monroe, maybe two. And I'd love to see some metrics, if he had them, of the property values around those areas. And I mean, I don't want it to be a big research project, but I think that would be, for those of us that do have some of that concern that it's reducing property values, or at least that's what we're hearing.
Okay.
And maybe some kind of metric that he has to show us that about his existing facility. And then we talked a little bit about the economics. I'd love to hear if he could provide kind of what the average cost for somebody to attend, the facility, whether pick some random period of time, whether it's a 10-day or 45 days, and some idea of the economics. I don't want to be into his business, but I want some kind of metric to support the assertion that it's, it's a kind of a income generating
Income
type
generating, okay?
type of
Those two
facility.
things, that'll happen.
And just an email to, we all have our emails on the website. I think
Shall I
that
send
really
it-
might,
Shall I send it to everyone?
I'm assuming the others would like to
Okay.
see it.
Okay.
I think that would really help at least add some substance. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Anyone else have a question?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Well, Crawford.
Ready?
Yeah, man.
We're close to the end, Mr. Chairman. Ordinances on second reading and final passage. Ordinance 40 levies a tax of 18 and 16/100th mils per dollar on all property subject to ad valorem taxation within the city of Shreveport, Louisiana for the year 2017 for the purposes of paying principal and interest on outstanding obligation bonds. It's important to note that this is a decrease in property tax overall of 0.84 mils. Ordinance number 41 levies a tax of 8 and 55/100 mils per dollar on all property subject to ad valorem taxation within the bounds of the Downtown Development District of the City of Shreveport, Louisiana, as defined by LARS 332740.38 for the year 2017 for the amounts and the purposes described herein. This is their current millage rate. Ordinance 42 levies various taxes totaling 17 and 29/100th mils per dollar on all property subject to ad valorem taxation within the city of Shreveport, Louisiana for the year 2017 in the amounts and for the purposes prescribed herein. This is the current ad valorem tax rate for the city of Shreveport. Ordinance 43 provides for an increase in the millage rates, whereas the city shall roll forward the millage rates not exceeding the maximum authorized rate and levying various taxes totaling 17 and 65/100 mils per dollar on all property taxes subject to ad valorem taxation within the city of Shreveport, Louisiana for the year 2017 in the amounts and for the purposes described herein. Important to note, even with this roll forward and the other property tax decrease of 0.84 mils, the overall property taxes in Shreveport will go down in 2017 0.48 mils. Ordinance 45 providing for an increase in the millage rates whereby the Shreveport Downtown Development Authority shall roll forward to millage rates not exceeding the maximum authorized rate and levying various taxes totaling 8.64/100th mils per dollar on all property subject to ad valorem taxation within the bounds of the Downtown Development District of the City of Shreveport, Louisiana, as defined by LARS 332740.38 for the year 2017 and the amounts and for the purposes described herein. Ordinance 47 amends the 2017 budget for the MPC Special Revenue Fund, appropriating the funds herein. Let me get to my notes. This is Mr. Sweeney's ordinance that provides a transfer of $50,000 from personnel services to $46,000 in contractual services and $4,000 for equipment for the future implementation and the UDC. Ordinance number 15 amends the 2017 capital improvements budget. This is $33.8 million in 4 consent decree projects for water and sewer. It also has an amendment where the streets, $5.3 million will be placed into a capital fund as well, so it can be expensed. Ordinance number 51 is a series of ordinance pursuant to the 2016 General Fund General Revenue Bond Ordinance authorizing the issuance of not exceeding $100 million of 1 water and sewer revenue bond, Series 2017A, and 2 water and sewer revenue bonds, Junior Lien Series 2017B for the City of Shreveport, State of Louisiana, as provided in a notice of intent given by Resolution 38 of 2017, adopted on March 14, 2017, establishing certain details of such bonds as required by the 2016 General Revenue Bond Ordinances, approving and confirming the sale of such bonds to a group of underwriters led by Siebert, Concercos, Shank and Company, LLC, pledging the net revenues for the city combined water and sewer system to secure such bonds, prescribing the form and certain terms and conditions of said bonds. Ordinance number 52 is a series ordinance pursuant to the 2016 General Revenue Bond Ordinance authorizing the issuance of not exceeding $50 million of water and sewer revenue refunding bonds, Series 2017C for the City of Shreveport, State of Louisiana, for the purposes of refunding the city obligations under a loan agreement related to an issuance of Louisiana Environmental Facilities and Community Development Authority revenue refunding bonds, Shreveport Utility Systems Project, Series 2005, establishing certain details of the 2017C bonds as required by the 2016 General Revenue Bond Ordinances, approving and confirming the sale of such bonds to Capital One Public Funding, LLC, pledging the net revenues of the city's combined water and sewer systems to secure the 2017 bonds, prescribing the form and certain terms and conditions of said bonds. Ordinance 53 is a series ordinance pursuant to the General Bond Ordinance authorizing the issuance of not exceeding $20 million principal amounts of taxable water and sewer revenue bonds, Junior Lien Series 2017-D for the City of Shreveport, State of Louisiana, is provided in a notice of intent given by Resolution Number 38 of 2017, adopted on March 14, 2017, establishing certain details of such bonds as required by the general bond ordinances, approving and confirming the sale of such bonds to the Clean Water State Revolving Fund, pledging the net revenue of the city's combined water and sewer systems to secure such bonds prescribed in the form and certain terms and conditions of said bonds. Ordinance number 54 amends the 2017 budget for the general fund. This is Councilman Fleury's ordinance regarding NPC. And then ordinance number 55 amends the 2017 street special revenue fund, and it allocates those funds that we talked about earlier with the amendment to the capital project to use those so they can be expensed.
Thank you. Councilman Bradford.
Yes, sir. And I appreciate the clarification, Mr. Crawford.
Yes, sir.
It appears that some of our friends in the media just took one portion of these ordinances and sort of elaborated on without looking at them in totality, and that the millages are actually going down a little bit.
That's correct. The total millage currently is 36.29 for the city. The millage will go down to 35.81 total for 2017, so people will see a decrease in their property tax.
And you know, I mean, we are, and a lot of things come with the position and territory, and this was viewed in media, various medias, and it took off like wildfire, as though, you know, city officials go up on y'all taxes and da-da-da-da. Did anybody contact the administration regarding a statement regarding this, or they just went with the story? Because once the horse got out the barn, you know, it's kind of hard to corral it.
Let me respond as the mayor of the city. Had we had gotten anything, we would have responded.
Okay.
I personally did not hear from people with that concern. I don't do Facebook, because usually Facebook is rumor. But you know, I would just encourage our media outlets to give us a call, give us an opportunity to respond when people call and feed them information. If they'll just call us, we'll be very glad to give our side of the story. And I think we have spent probably the last 2 council meetings discussing what happened with the roll forward, even because it was an underestimation of our property taxes assessments. And we did invite, as you know, the assessor to come and appear before this council at the last meeting to even explain it. So, you know, we did due diligence, but we cannot stop the false rumors. And people will do that because they have agendas. But we're going to keep moving forward, trying to serve the people in this city.
Thank you very much, Mayor, for those remarks.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Corbin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to ask this question because I think it's confusing to the citizens, because I know it's confusing to me. And I'm not sure if I'm directing this to administration or the city attorney or to Mr. Thompson. So I'll just ask the question and let somebody jump on it. For instance, if we look at number 40, ordinance 42 and 43. 42 is the current assessment.
Correct. That's correct.
43 would be the roll forward assessment.
Correct.
That's correct.
Why do both of these have to be on our agenda? And if, just why do both of these have to be on the agenda?
The law requires us to have them both on there, because if the roll forward fails, then we have the other ordinance that we can fall back on with the current millage rates. So we have to move forward with a current millage, one or the other. So we have to put both of them on there.
Okay. And one other thing, that ordinance 42 would be on there regardless of any of this.
Okay.
Every year we have that exact same ordinance on
of whatever the current rate.
on whatever the current rate is. So that's not.
And that's our fallback if needed. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Sure.
Okay. Councilman G.
Yes. Question simply about, no, it's not in this section, 82 above that describes the bonds. Is that an advertising issue? Excuse me.
82.
80, excuse me. I may have that number.
I think it's in the previous section.
previous section, it describes
87?
87.
Is that the one about?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's.
It was we got out of sequence on our advertising, or
No, because the other three are ordinances. This is simply just a resolution notifying and affirming that a public hearing was held on the $120 million bond issuance.
you don't have to make that on the other ordinances.
No.
And why is that, out of curiosity?
Because
it's a new issuance and not a refunding?
Correct, and also because there are certain provisions in the law that allow us to make the notifications, to make those issuances peremptory. It allows notice to the public so that if they have any questions or discussions related to it, there's a time frame for them to address it. And then once the issuance occurs, there are certifications to the state that public hearing was held, and there's a certain time related, it becomes peremptory because of under state law. And that's why we hold a public hearing. It's something we started, I think in the last two issuances we've done doing those.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay, in regards to my 54, I'd like that to be fair, an opportunity to give Mr. Sweeney to come forward, because he was not here when we discussed that last time. And Mr. Sweeney, would you please come forward? Mr. Sweeney and I did have a meeting and discussed some information that apparently was misinformation concerning his 50,000.
A lot of misinformation.
Okay. So let me explain to you where this money comes from so you'll have a sense of understanding of what we're trying to do here. The majority of that money is the fact that I had one position that became vacant at the end of December, and it's the residual of funding in that position which I plan to fill sometime later this year, but I have a residual of funds that are not being spent on personnel money that I would like to divert to something that I think is very important to the budgeting process in 2018. And this is something that Councilman Fleury and I talked about at length because it's so important, is that I believe it's necessary to do what I refer to as a financial sustainability study of the MPC, which covers a lot of things, but the most important thing is to answer the $64,000 question as to what percentage of our budget should come from the parish and what percentage should come from the city. And no one has ever, in the history of this organization, ever sat down and analyzed not only the revenue streams that we have, but look at all of our other costs, which includes our costs with insurance as well as other benefits, as well as to observe what other sources of revenue there might be that would help sustain the MPC in a long-term fashion. But I believe as we go forward to this decision that we have to make on the budget, because it came up this last year, it's come up every year since I've been here, as to what is the fair apportionment of funding for the MPC. And this can be done by hiring a consultant to actually do this sustainability study. I would like to proceed to do that in this month and to have that information ready hopefully by the first part of August. And that way then as we go into the budgeting process, I can give you an answer to that question. Now, this is also meant to be given to the parish because the idea is to have a third party, independent party, professional consultant to be able to come up with answers to some of these fundamental questions that come up year after year. And I agree with Councilman Fleury, we need an answer to that question. And I think it's only fair to approach it from this angle. So I'm asking to do this budget amendment primarily for that purpose.
Okay. Anybody have a question? I'm going to follow your recommendation on this.
And I intend to withdraw this before I'm going to give MPC an opportunity to move forward and come up with some.
You're withdrawing the amendment as well?
Yeah, I'll withdraw the amendment tomorrow, but I want to give Mr. Sweeney an opportunity to get up, explain that he's not taking the $50,000 using it unwisely. Thank you, Mr. Sweeney.
Thank you, sir.
You sure? So, yeah.
It was sold
I was, but I've had a meeting with Mr. Sweeney.
You have a right to change his mind, Councilman.
I'm fair and balanced. We'll see what happens.
That's amendment number 1 to ordinance number 47 and also ordinance number 54.
Gotcha.
You action or selling?
Yes.
Say yes.
Yes.
54 and 47.
All right. Thompson? Is there any table legislation the council consider?
Not that we're aware of, Mr. Chairman. We do have 2 property standards appeals.
I'm going to talk about some horses. No. Here. We're going into horses. Grab your stirrups. We're going to go into some horses here.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon, Mr. Green.
All right. Our first case is
Boulevard.
Yeah, I was waiting on it to come up on the screen. I'm connected.
Hey, Mr. Sweeney, can you hold on for a minute? Because I want to ask you to talk about something when he's done. Okay.
Okay, well. Okay, there we go. First case is 437 Boulevard. This is the same structure that they have basically redone everything. They have not finished wrapping the porch and wrapping the exterior of the structure. They just brought back new, or should I say, period correct materials to the house because that was not there the last inspection. And they're going to use it to finish the second story and the rest of the exterior. But as far as building, nothing else has taken place.
So this is just a reminder to the council. This is a house that it was in really rough shape. The frustration with it at this point is that they've done some great work, but they have yet to do some of the exterior work that really needs to be finished in order to just release it. This person who is doing this work has a wonderful track record of taking houses in this area and taking them from nearly fallen over to beautiful. This one just happens the exterior is taking longer than we'd hoped for. So I had in the past given long delays because of the past record of successful responses. But in this instance, I've reached out to this guy last time and the time before, and whereas I usually hear back from him real fast, I have not heard back from him. So I'm going to do a shorter delay. I still think it's worthy of giving a little bit more time because there is progress that's being shown, but I want to do a shorter delay to make sure we get his attention and feedback and make sure that he's got a good plan for finishing this one out. I think he's probably had some other projects that took priority over this maybe, but I'd like to get his attention on it, and so I'd like to move to just postpone it to our next council meeting.
Second.
Motion by Councilor Everson, second by Councilor Jenkins. Any discussion? Please vote. And that motion passes.
Okay, our next case is 4318 Hollywood Avenue. I was asked to bring back a signed affidavit by the owner so that we could close it out, and now we are responsible for demolishing the structure. She'll set up her payment plan and we'll proceed from there.
So you have that document? Oh. I was looking at this screen.
That's not it. So moved. Moved by Councilman Bowman, second by the chair. Any discussion?
That's to remove it from the agenda.
Yeah. Yes. Late vote. And the motion passed.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay. Maybe there's a question. Okay. I sent you an email about, I believe I did, about horses in my favorite little neighborhood.
By what?
I think you were on it, and I think Mr. Sweeney was on it. And everybody's looking at me like I don't know what I'm talking about, but
we're trying to get out of it.
okay.
We're trying to get out of the animal business.
Exactly. Okay, and so look, I'm here to tell you my story. So there I was, paint your heart out. I went to a house. Guess who was there?
A horse.
The head of the Caddo Commission.
Mr. Ed.
The head of the Caddo Commission was there, and he said, "I can't believe you allow horses in the city of Shreveport." I'm like, I don't know how long we've been working on this. And how did I lose our city attorney here at the same time? Because he worked on this project too.
He said something about owning a tack shop.
Roll on out. Okay. In the area behind 70th and Lime, that Bethany / I know I've sent this email, and I know there are several people on it now. Maybe for some reason it didn't go to anybody, and that's why everybody's using this. It's also in our report of concern. There are 3 horses in the front yard of one house. There is a horse across the street in another house. There are 3 horse trailers. There are 2 barns, and none of it is zoned correctly. There are also chickens and roosters over there. Now somebody has got to step up and start enforcing this ordinance. I mean, it is absolutely being abused right there. And I spoke to the resident there. She's dissatisfied. I sent an email saying to everybody, hey, we've been working on this for 5 years. We spent at least 6 months with the Caddo Commission when you first became the city attorney revising this ordinance. I don't understand whose job it really is to enforce this, because clearly none of it is in accordance with our ordinance right now. Now, did I not send, did none of y'all get this email?
I did.
Well, you weren't on the email, I can tell you.
Why? I'm a chairman.
Well, I'm happy to send it to you. I don't bother you with all my email. Yeah, I will resend that email. But it's also in our report of concern database. So I don't know who gets it when you put in. She doesn't know. Hold on. It goes to Mr. Sweeney. If I put it in report of concern with, I think it's under, there's a thing about zoning and animal control. And it gets shifted around to different departments. I don't know who receives it in that system. Do you receive it?
No, sir, I sure don't.
And well, not you personally. I'm sure there's a different level that it goes to.
This sounds very much like something that I need to be certain that Mr. Alan Clark has, so that he can go out and send someone and verify everything that you're
I'm pretty sure he was on that email as well,
but I did not receive that email. But if you send it to me now, I will look into it.
Obviously, I'm going back. When I get back, I'm going to get that email.
Please do. Please do. Please do.
But the bottom line is, it is the area directly behind, the gas station / Sonic / the Subway. Those 4-block areas, there are innumerable horses out in the open.
Yeah.
And they're so unafraid that they have their horse trailers parked all over the place. I mean, there's no intent. And they're going to suggest that somehow it was incorporated into the city of Shreveport as a village. That's not matter. According to our ordinance, assuming those horses are not still living from when it was incorporated as a village.
Right.
Absolutely no way under
Those
the
would be
code
old horses.
can that be legit, particularly since they're not zoned accordingly.
Right. And I do believe that what we can do is we'll check into that and we will verify all the things to see whether or not there is, what the zoning is, because off the top of my head, I don't know what the zoning is there, what's allowed, and now that we're under the Unified Development Code, what provisions within there will give us the opportunity to enforce that. So we
But it actually is all under the new animal control ordinance that, I believe you were in those meetings as well, were you not, with the parish?
No, sir, I was not.
You might not have been, but maybe one of your handy assistants.
It's very possible. Yeah.
Alan and Stephen were there. It might have been, I don't know if you were here yet or when it was, but anyway, long and short of it, we need to actually start enforcing it.
We will look into that immediately.
Thank you very much.
The other thing is, I mean, I hate to just jump on this, a much smaller concern, but I mean, I have some neighbors who have been complaining about a rooster that lives in the backyard of them. And I mean, this is a block and a half from my house, you know, like, and it has been crowing for 5 damn years. I mean, everyone knows it's there. No one pretends it's not there. But they're not taking it out. But it's like they can't get them to get rid of this rooster, you know.
And like, report a concern and ask at the bottom who gets this email. I mean, because I'm serious. Like, because, and it's not that nobody has responded to it. Like, I mean, people have acknowledged this is a violation. But, I mean, no one's gone over there to, you know, confiscate the rooster. I mean, like, and I don't know whose authority it is to do that. You know?
Yes.
And it's a strange situation, though. I'll tell you that.
Confiscate around Thanksgiving.
Okay, I'm going to give you the actual address to start your search. 6811 Liberty Street.
6811 Liberty Street.
So directly across is 1 horse, and 2 doors down is 3 horses and chickens over here to the south. And so I put this in there on 5/14, and I got a response that says, "Thank you for your request. Here's what we have on file." But normally when we put them in the system, we get, hey, it's in this department and it's being sent to this. I mean, it's very clear who has this as an action item. This one, it's in the ether world somewhere. So I don't know who gets this one. I also have an email, but I'm going to find that afterwards. Thank you very much.
You bet. You bet.
Thank you.
And there are no appeals, alcohol board appeals, and there are
Nothing
no
else.
MP.
We got nothing else.
ZBA, Mr. Thompson. And are there any reports from officers, boards, or committees? Mr. Thompson, is there clerk's report?
We've received an appointment for an assistant city attorney, Shelby Grant, and I believe that the city attorney has some comments.
Mayor, members of the council, I'd like to introduce to you Shelby Grant. With the approval of the council and the recommendation of the mayor, she'll join our team as an assistant city attorney, specifically in the prosecutor's office. Come forward. I'd like her to introduce herself to you and answer any questions that you may have.
William, would you be? Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mayor Tyler, City Council. My name is Shelby R. Grant, and I am a 2013 graduate of Southern University Law Center, and I would like to thank Attorney Bradford for entrusting me with this duty, and I look forward to serving.
Okay.
Any questions?
Any questions? We welcome you.
I have a question, Chip. I can't find my notes. In the absence of my notes, give me your experience again.
I worked briefly at a private law firm, and then I've spent the last 2 years working at Legal Services of North Louisiana as a staff attorney.
Okay. And what area of service you going to be doing at the city of Montgomery?
Again, pending council confirmation, she will be serving as an assistant city prosecutor. All of my attorneys are assistant city attorneys, but we do have prosecutors as well down at City Court. It's a good area for courtroom experience. It's a good opportunity for young lawyers to get involved in the courtroom at an early age. They practice the prosecution of municipal ordinances and violations, so they're not handling felonies or anything like that. But it's a very close part of our office. We entrust them with a great responsibility. I think Mr. Grant would be a great addition to that as well.
And this is a full-time position?
No, this is a part-time position. One of the things that the mayor charged us with is restructuring and organizing our office to be more efficient. One of the things that we did in the city attorney's office is make sure that all of our assistant city attorneys are also qualified to prosecute. Therefore, we have a capacity that's been greater than any other administration as far as prosecuting goes. So when Mr. Smith, who's a full-time assistant city attorney, resigned to go private practice, I was able to adjust our staffing needs to hire a part-time prosecutor to fill certain days, because the way the dockets roll throughout the week, I actually have capacity now to handle it with a part-time assistant city attorney as well.
Okay. That answers my question I'm not going to ask. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Grant, you be going to the city court?
Yes.
Be going to look for those horses and chickens.
They get in front of you, you better be just robust in your attack. It's got to stop.
Thank you so much. Looking forward to having you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, communications from the mayor?
Not today.
Council members?
Chairman, I have additional communication, if you don't mind. Mr. Chairman, I'm going to make the council aware that I'm not going to be repetitious and ask all these questions tomorrow. That's why I got them off today. Everything.
Can we get them a hold to it? I mean,
Well,
I want to make. I'm going to get a timestamp on this right here.
But let me just say this. I have just two issues I want to bring to the attention, and it's not issues for action. It's just issues of concern. As an adult, I would consider myself an achiever. Most of the items or the issues or the things that I've gotten involved with from an early age. I got married at 18. Educated my wife, all my children. I've been successful in doing some other things for the community and otherwise. So I usually take issues and move on them. And I am absolutely, and I don't know. Again, this is not for action. This is for information. I am so depressed about the conditions of the Cooper Road, MLK, that I don't know how to approach getting it solved. I took the council chairman and the clerk on a bus ride last week, and I think it was an eye-opening experience. They may not acknowledge that it was that eye-opening. The chairman does. The quality of life, the quality of living in some section of that community is appalling. It's almost like third world country. I'm talking about, and I'm not criticizing the people, I'm just criticizing the condition and the quality of life that we expect and use as a standard in Shreveport is not being afforded in certain parts of this city. It is, without question, the most economically depressed area of the city. Constant flooding when it rains. Overgrown fields. I'm not going to say lots. I'm going to say fields because there's so much property that's up there that is not being attended to or cared for, and it's just, we have dilapidated, substandard housing, both occupied and unoccupied. That is unbelievable. I'm not even sure how property standard inspectors could cite any house without citing all these houses. I don't know what criteria they use because it's just that bad in houses that it's just bad. And I'm not exaggerating. You can. I mean, these gentlemen can verify. The streets, the city. That part of the city, that part was of the community was annexed in the city in 1978. And the things that you guys mentioned, roosters and chickens and hogs and cows and all that was a part of that culture. Just 25 years ago. It's impossible to police and at the level that we would in areas that you just mentioned. It would be unjust or unfair at least to hold people accountable for something that was there when they came into the city and nothing was done to help change those conditions. I don't know. The next day I took two guys from Willis Knight, I'm just going to say for my employment, because I wanted to go back and give them a tour, and they was appalled as well. And we didn't even have a chance to. After an hour and a half, I brought the councilman back to the office because we didn't have a chance to do the whole tour. I would say we toured a third of it, and the conditions that we experienced or they experienced was just eye-opening. In fact, the chairman said we ought to take the whole council for a tour. That's not the issue. The issue for me is, and I took pictures. I'm not gonna do anything tomorrow regarding the pictures, but we have an extra week, and I'm gonna email pictures to you guys on some of the conditions and the scenery that exists up there. Again, this is not an action communication. This is just saying I need to think of how I'm gonna make something better. I would love to have my district, like you would yours, better than when you found it. And I don't know how to address it. I asked the council clerk to look at maybe helping me develop some type of ordinances or legislation that could at least create some type of level playing field, but he cautioned me about doing things like that because it just afford us to break off the city into different areas as our charter allows at this point. But I don't know what to do. But the conditions are unbelievable. We inherited, and it appears that I don't know. They used to say that the squeaky wheel gets the oil. I don't know enough oil could be on these wheels to get it anywhere near where it needs to be. Good people, excellent people, God-fearing people, but the poverty in the living quality is just not what we would want. I had one of my friends, and I'm just going to repeat, but I didn't necessarily subscribe to his characterization that if he was homeless, he wouldn't want to live in some of those houses that people are actually living in. So we're going to come up with something that will somehow improve the standards of living of a great sector of this city before my term is up. And I have a year and what, 7 months?
5 years. 7.
How many?
5 years.
No, you're going too far now. 1 year. The voters allowed us 4 years, so that is in 1 year and 7 months. So, but thank you, Mr. Chairman. It sounds like I'm complaining, offending, but it's just something that I need to express.
I'd like to make a couple comments if you're okay. I did go on the deal. I had how are we going to come up with some solutions is what we got to talk about. We see the problem. The problem that broke my heart on that trip, And I say this not to be joking or funny, but this actually shocked me. Cedric Glover's 8 years mayor of this city. We drove by his mother's house, and the drainage problem had never been fixed. Flooded her home. He won't do it for his mama. He certainly won't do it for the community, but he comes from that area up there. Now, coming up with solutions, I hope that Senator John Kennedy will be in town in the near future, and I've already reached out to his office. I want him to go see that. Somewhere, somehow, maybe HUD, housing, or something that would be to help the citizens up there to get better affordable housing. Got to look for solutions. Now, one other thing I'd like to say, Mayor Tyler invited the council out to the airport park ribbon cutting. And Mayor, I was totally impressed with that, what's been done out there. And I thank you for that invite. It was very nice what they've done out there with the tennis courts and the swimming pool. And you can tell the citizens out there are happy that they've gotten something in their community that they can go and really appreciate this summer. So it's very, very nice, Mayor. And also you invited us to Bill Cockrell, I believe, this week on the 25th, and I look forward to going there and seeing that. And then July the 6th, you said we could come to Cargill and see the commitment and the construction that will be completed there, and that's going to be a big deal. So I appreciate those invites, and then especially that airport, Mayor. It was so nice to see what has happened out there for those citizens. Anybody else with council members? That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.